Now we check. Check. Okay. Hello and good evening. My name is Sojourner, also known as Steve Williams, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about game balance. I am a game designer with 20 years of experience, and from that I'm going to draw from my knowledge to talk a little bit about game design. I heard that I was angry typing. I have got to do something about this keyboard. It's right next to the mic. I don't really have a solution for either right this second. So don't make me type. We are going to talk about game balance, and game balance is something near and dear to my heart. It is my professional focus. So that also means I've got a lot on the line about this stream. So without further ado, why don't we talk a little bit about game balance in game design. And I think a good game to do that with is Slime Rancher, because it's got several aspects of game balance that we can totally take a look at and discuss. So the key concepts that I want to go over tonight is game balance is one of many things, but we're going to focus on the most obvious thing, which is economic game balance and how that affects every other bit of balance, because everything that goes on here is a carefully balanced machine, or at least a balanced machine. And if anything goes wrong, or if anything is overtuned, undertuned, out of balance, exploitive, then the whole game falls down. And so for this, I use the analogy of spinning plates. And if you don't know what I mean, go to YouTube or wherever you get your videos and look up spinning plates. It's a professional focus of mine to do game balance. It is a professional focus of people much more talented to spin plates. The reason why I say they spin plates is because, or we spin plates as game designers, is because, like I said, if anything goes wrong, then the entire game falls down, just like with spinning plates. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I've got three main parts that we're going to go over. And on Tuesday, I kind of did a dry run. Not really, but I walked around talking about game balance in this game. And we all learned some things. So first off, the game has resources. The game has little monsters called plorts. Little monsters called slimes. And when you feed them, they spit out something that is probably poop. But we use it as an industrial chemical. And you can see that there are many different flavors of these plorts, and managing them and their price changes is a big deal. So let's look at those price changes. I started out in front of the market, the plort market, to talk a little bit about some basics of game design while we're here. The game sound is too loud. Okay. Done and done. The mic sound. The mic sound is much louder now. Oh, okay. Game sound too loud. Solution is not to turn up the mic. I stopped here at the Plort Market because boy, this is going to be a long one, because we have here a veritable cornucopia of various flavors of plorts, and these represent the slimes. Boy, I'm going to get that wrong a million times. These represent the slimes that I have discovered so far, and there's only one area left, and guess what's there? So you can see they all have prices, and on some of these you can see that they're trending down and they're trending up, and this looks terribly confusing and important. And I'm here to tell you that there is a lot of game design around this, involving Perlin noise and logarithmic price changes, but really there's some very practical takeaways you can take from this. So, I said I'm a game designer. I said I have 20 years of experience, but I am not here to teach you how to be a game designer, and I'm not here to tell you what every game designer knows. Instead, I am here to talk about my own experiences and what I have learned about various aspects. This is my quote-unquote formal presentation, and I'll tell you about who I'm doing this for in just a second. I have also less formal presentations on my own channel, which we'll talk about at the end of this, so I do not stomp on my hosts. And who are my hosts? They are PieTrap Studios. They are an art and co-development studio up in Seattle, Washington. They recently spun up a game development studio, and here I am as their game designer, handling everything. I just mentioned yesterday that I'm now officially a tech designer, which was the last bit of the discipline punch card, from everything from narrative to economics to live operations to monetization. I have done it all now. Level design, navel gazing. I do a lot of navel gazing. All right, we're going to move on to talking a little bit about part one. So first off, I've got several different types of plorts of various flavors: tabby, honey, and tangle. And I also have a bunch of these slimes sitting in various pens, and they all have very different aspects. And the spoiler here is they also all have varying abilities. Okay, let me take a look at the echoing real quick. Probably there is something, I know where it is. This has happened to me before. Okay, wow, this has happened to me before, but we're going to do something different this time and see if that helps. I am also too rich. Okay, let's try this. Let me know if I'm still echoing. It only happens on this server. What is this server? What is this channel? PieTrap Studios. I told you that they have recently spun up a game design studio. I am their game designer. And here tonight I'm going to talk about game balance, and I'm going to cover it from an interesting direction, or at least interesting to me direction, a little bit different than you've probably seen it talked about before. But we are going to take apart this game and take apart various aspects of this. And all right, well, lots have been said. I am checking the chat, and other than stage direction, I'm hoping for some live questions. I'm happy to take questions. I don't have the little ding-a-ling that I have on my own server, so I will check frequently. All right, so I have this plort market. I have a bunch of plorts. These prices are trending. This is game balance right before you. And I care as a player about these. And how much I care is a personal decision that we will talk about. So for instance, Tangles, which are my left-hand one, they're 63 a piece. And their price is apparently trending up. 63 is a pretty good price. So I can, without hesitation, or can I, sell these. I only have 3 tabby plorts, so do I care if I sold only 3? Maybe. How about honey plorts? This is a pretty depressed price because I have sold a bunch of these in the past. Do I care? Maybe. And all of this comes down to what the game balance does to the actual game. And so part 1 is balancing a game is like juggling one ball, but you have 3 arms. What is that one ball? Everyone's heard me talk about it before. It is player time. The only thing that matters in any game is that players, or viewers in this case of this Twitch channel, have donated some of their life, some of their living life, the only life they have, to play your game or to watch your game. And it is our job as game developers, game designers especially, to honor that and provide an incredible experience, or at least as incredible as we can get it, for our players. So that said, I should probably define what is a game designer. Another thing people on this channel and my own channel have heard me say many times. A game designer is a person who has an experience in their head, and they want you to have that experience. That's it. There's all this technical stuff that people talk about, but ultimately, that is the fundamentals. I, as a game designer, have a concept in my head and a form of entertainment that I wish someone else to have, an experience. Say from PyTrap, which I forgot to finish introing. On PyTrap, I care about certain elements of game design, and one of them may be game economics. And so if the game economics are bad, then the game doesn't ring true for the player. It doesn't feel like a real game. And we lose players. We lose everything. So here we have preferred food. So these are quantum slimes. They are a real pain. Already we've got one trying to escape. So these quantum slimes, when they're unhappy or otherwise, they will send out these ghosts. Nice try, buddy. And they can swap places with the ghosts if they get upset. So obviously we don't want that. Their favorite food is phase lemons. So we're going to give them a bunch for free and then put a bunch in the hopper. This is some mid-game automation and another interesting part of what we're doing. I don't need those, but I'm going to pick up these because they're semi-valuable. See how I'm talking? Game balance went into my thoughts about these puddle plorts, or these puddle slimes as plorts. They're space poop. So let me finish introducing PyTrap before I forget again. So PyTrap is that studio up in Seattle that I talked about, and when they're not doing art, and you should hire them to do art, when they are not helping with development of various games, they are really nice people, and it's my pleasure to work on their server and work on their game as their designer. Wow, it's one of those nights. So what does this mean? We have this cool PyTrap Studios, and they're asking me to, they're not asking me anything, by the way. They've given me the honor of allowing me, I don't know how to go with that, to talk about game design however I wish. And the way I wish to is by playing a different game each week and talking about a topic and showing how this game, in some way, fits with this topic. So back to the script, such as it is. We have one ball, but 3 arms. What I mean by that is a game designer has a lot of things to do, has a lot of jobs to do when it comes to a game. But ultimately, there is only one ball, and that is player's time. And the player's time is the ultimate bit of game balance. If you take too much of the player's time, Evil Genius 2, then the player comes off, if not bitter, then at least unhappy. Can't believe you think you're going hungry. Likewise, if the player sees very little content for the effort they're putting in, and it's super short, then you have the opposite problem, which the player starts to cycle out, not because you're taking too much time, but that you didn't take enough time for the things that they thought were fun. You didn't take enough time before you ended the game to handle whatever business the player had, etc. So far you've seen me walking around my ranch and not even doing a great job of it. Just showing you that this ranch has several parts, and there's economics going on here. Quite a bit of economics going on here. Balance is involved. I've got these odd onions, and we'll throw those to whomever it is, to the crystal dude. And then we've got these, which go to the rad dudes, and so on and so forth. We've got things that I have to allocate. I have 4 spots here, and one of them is for these guys. We'll enjoy them bouncing and causing explosions and putting up stars. I wanted that. These are mosaic slimes from the desert. We'll be going to the desert shortly. These are painted hens. They're hens, but painted. Finally put in some roosters because, you know, that's how new hens are made. And we have these mosaic slimes doing mosaic things. So first and foremost, this machinery is part of the game balance in a big way. Specifically, it allows me to access mid and end game gear, like this teleporter that I can place. So 1 ball, 3 arms. What are those 3 arms? Just all the game mechanics, all the things you put into the game as a designer, the experience you wish them to have, that sometimes is complicated, sometimes isn't complicated, sometimes takes up time, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes it activates the imagination, and sometimes it just, you know, laughs at it, draws you or drags you by the nose. So all of these things are not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily good. They're just a thing. And that's true of any experience, period, anywhere in the world. Like, if you're having an experience, it may not be for everyone. And so as a game designer, you also have the job of trying to curate the experience you have in your head to match the likeliest of players, and perhaps the unlikeliest of players. So we got these 3 arms, all these game systems we want the player to play. Oh, that hurt. And we have only 1 ball, which is player time. So let's talk a little bit about that. But before we do, if we have this ultimate currency, which is time, then what is game balance then? What does that matter? If the only thing is time, then just take up the player's time to a certain amount. Become a Ubisoft game and have 65,000 hours of content that no one plays. You know, stuff like that. This thing's just spitting out more of these onions. Okay. Side note, this guy does not need onions, but we'll put these in the hopper and turn down the hopper speed. I'm not going to mess with the fire guys right now, but the rads always get my attention. They're glowy, they hurt. What more could you ask? So if time is the ultimate currency, what the hell are we balancing this game for? Just pick an amount of time, set everything to do that. I once worked with a guy, a professional game designer who had many years of experience, who explained to me his concept of balance, which was simply he came up with an arbitrary amount of time, and then he figured out, mostly by his gut, how long it would take to finish out that time, and then he just made that game. It was an eye-opening thing, and I could see some benefit, at least in the mental workload of the guy, but obviously this is not how you should approach game balance. Game balance is built around the player experience and what you want to do with that player experience over time, which can involve calculating time. And this, by the way, is a little bit of a spoiler for next week's discussion, which has to do with time. But right now it doesn't, except to talk about time as the ultimate currency. So this one designer reasoned, not necessarily incorrectly, that if the ultimate currency is time, which, you know, he didn't put it that way, but it's the same thing, then how do we spend it? It's a currency. You can spend currency. And the way you spend it is by making sure the player has specific things to do. And in this game, there are 2 specific things to do. Ranching, which you've been watching me do for the past 20 years, and adventuring, which we're going to do when I decided we're done ranching. Oh, those dervishes. When they get a little upset, they throw these out, and they can throw those dervish whirlwinds can just toss things aside like those lemons. That's why they're in this corner. And by the way, this is a whole thing that I'm hopefully going to talk about a little bit, which is just how do you lay out this thing. Internet conversations are just nothing but how do you lay out these guys? Because they can interfere with each other in a terrible way. They send out dervishes. These tangles over here can send out vines long enough to steal food from the other side, or just elsewhere. And they put out these sneezy blobs, which causes things to sneeze. Oh, we're going to go over this way. But not us. We're tough. So, with the time as a currency, and with this knowledge that, you know, we don't necessarily want time alone to be the decider, we need to start talking about what is game balance. Like, there's several flavors of it, and everyone has a different idea of what those flavors are. And I'm here to break them all down, because that's what I do for a living, is break things down and then make a game out of it. So in the case of game balance, we've got kind of several flavors of it, and players recognize all of these when you say it. Oh, there's this game balance. Yes, that makes sense. But it's not necessarily a thing that's on their mind when they think about how fair the game is, how fun the game is, how engaging the game is, and how I'm out of analogies. Those are plenty. This guy's a hunter. He turns invisible and then eats things. I like to keep him in a good supply of chickens at all times. So let's talk about. There's 4 basic flavors of game balance that I want to talk about. One of which is take the stuff to the right place. Sojourner. Oh, that's right. I didn't say my name. My name is Sojourner, and I'm also known as Steve Williams. I think I did say that now that I think about it. But you should know me as Sojourner, and I am Cloud Yeller elsewhere, and I will plug myself at the end of this. No need to hear about that nonsense now. So my intent was to feed some folks, because a frequent problem you're going to have in this game is, other than overproduction, is when you leave the ranch, bad things happen. Animals go hungry. When they go hungry, they get unruly. They get out of their enclosures. They send dervishes and clouds of sneezy smoke. And these guys have radiation, which gets a little bigger when they're unhappy. These guys bounce bigger and bigger and bigger. All in all, it's trouble when you leave. So why would you leave? Well, the obvious answer is part of the game balance. The obvious answer is part of the game design. The experience that they wish you to have. And oh wait, I need to get the tabbies too. They're meowing. That's your sign of who these guys are. So we'll talk about these. These are Largos, and they're like a hybrid between 2 flavors. These are also Largos. They are actually both the same species, honey and honey. These are mixed with rad, and these are mixed with tabbies. And my reasons for it are less important as the time goes on, but each of these had a reason, which is why you do things. So back to what do we mean by game balance? We've got a couple things. We've got a couple things to think about. First off, mechanical game balance. Again, like the second I say these, you're going to recognize them, and it's true of all players. So mechanical balance is things that cause fair play. Equivalent UX across, say, platforms is an example of mechanical balance. Game mechanics that focus on fun in a way that allows everyone to move at their own speed. And things that are not necessarily real, but are built on the concept of fun, either in time, either in metaphor, haha, you heard it, either in model, either in math, and either in metrics. Those are my 4 M's, friends. You've heard them. Love them. As a quick aside, normally I do a bad voice acting session and an allusion to a China Miéville book. So just like last week, I would say that the best China Miéville book would be Perdido Street Station, because it encompasses all the things. But we're not going to do China Miéville this week because I'm told that he's too obscure, which is true. So I'm going to go one step less obscure, and that's Kim Stanley Robinson. And my analogy is the book series, the Mars book series, but specifically Red Mars, the good one. So Red Mars involves the first 100 colonists on Mars. Involves the first 100 colonists on Mars. And we go through many years of their lives, and we see many conflicts between things that we're going to see tension of in this game. So I've done stuff in my ranch. Okay, I need to get rid of the pogo fruit because I need an empty inventory. So soon we are done with the ranching, and we're going to have an excursion out to what I call adventuring. And this is the tension between two things. Stay at home, make money, ranch. Leave. Well, why? Let's talk about game balance some more and we'll see. So if mechanical balance is how the game actually operates, things like fair play happens when you have a balancing system for matchmaking. That's the word I'm looking for. That's an example of mechanical balance. It's forced through levers and knobs and dials to be what it is. There's economic balance, which obviously is going to be the big one that everyone thinks of, and also the focus of tonight's discussion. There's challenge balance. So things like, this boss monster is hard. This boss monster is at this location. You have to kill, or in this case, adorably deal with, X number of things. You're going to have to deal with when these guys combine in a certain way. They'll form TARs, which are unstoppable Agent Johnsons from the Matrix. And we'll see that. I mean, we're definitely going to see some TARs on our adventure. But you see, as I leave the comfort of my ranch, I've got long traversals, which requires game balance. I've got changes of terrain and biome, which implies content, and it is different content. Good job. And the thing that we're about to talk about, challenge balance. So I am now in the Glass Desert, which is the next to last location in this game. And the Glass Desert is much more challenging than this nonsense here. So these are extractor miners. I've got an apiary, and I think that was a drill. Oh boy. I have to make hard decisions again. Oh, it's because of the royal jelly and the... Okay. What can I afford to leave behind? The buzzwax, certainly. But I need that royal jelly. Okay, well, we'll be back. And that's another spoiler about the game balance. Look at that inventory. Have you ever seen a game with 4 inventory? Something's wrong with these designers. Or maybe it's game balance. So that's part of challenge balance. A lot of things are part of challenge balance. You could say that everything's a part of challenge balance, because when your player engages with your content, the experience you wish them to have, then they're going to be challenged to some degree. And if they aren't, then they're going to cycle right out. It's like reading a book, but worse. So there is a challenge to everything, even traversal. I could have fallen off this into the slime sea, where all slimes come from and all slimes return, just like Odo from Deep Space Nine. So challenge balance is everywhere and everything all at once. And I'm having to traverse long distances to deposit these very valuable science resources, I believe they're called. And they are science, slime science. And this is the focus of the end game, is using the slime science to build bigger and better things, like the teleporter we're going to use over here in the not-too-distant future, if we can get through all these stars. These are very angry slimes. They're just doing everything they can to get my attention and get food. And they produced a lot of very valuable poop, which we will deal with also, since we're heading back. So these 4 science resources, obviously, they're used to build different things, and we're going to actually go back and get the other resources. And that is part of the game balance. The game designers were very purposeful in making sure that the player had to traverse and go back and forth. And the more you obsess over optimizing, the more you have to traverse back and forth, and pretty soon you're not optimizing. That's actually good game design. And that's part of the last one, which is meta balance. When you create I'll use a live game first, but this game also has meta balance, because anytime you patch, you've changed the meta. And this game has had a number of patches before Slime Rancher 2 came out. So meta balance encompasses everything, like from live games. It encompasses looking at the game metrics and changing maybe how much damage things do, how long it takes to spawn, how much things are worth. Also, when players change their behavior. Have you ever played a game where there was just a strat everyone used, and therefore, you would be foolish not to? This is especially true in the old MMORPGs and a lot of shooty run-around games. So this meta balance is to address not just patch changes and not just to address the desires and the metrics showing that the game designer that things need to change, but it's also largely about how you can mitigate players doing only one thing, how you can create, if not the fairest play, then at least the most engaging play across multiple players. Here you can see another panoply. We're in a different biome, the moss expanse, something like that. And we have familiar slimes. I'm never going to get that right, like the cat slime and the pinks. But you can see there's a puddle one over there. You can also see some of them are large and some of them are small. We're going to definitely talk about the Largos and how that works. In fact, I'm going to go over here and you're going to see what happens when slimes go wrong, just as a bit of entertainment while I talk about the dry topic of time being the ultimate currency. So once you establish a pattern of play, then you need to balance it against the amount of time and effort the player has to spend on it. Because the player doesn't just have a limited amount of time to play. They have a limited amount of cognitive space, headspace, ability to keep 100 things in their mind, especially with a game like this one. Because there is 100 different things to keep on your mind. And a lot of them are kind of counterfactual with each other. Oh, there we go. This is a tar. This is what happens when a Largo tries to get a third flavor of plort inside them. So, I already said a couple times, two different plorts can combine by eating each other's poop to form a Largo, which is a hybrid of the two. This is a pink boom Largo. It's a pink with one of these booms, and it does that. There's a boom. This is a pink phosphor. It is a mix between the phosphor and the pink. And as you can see, it flies. And they disappear when it's daylight. So don't leave them out in the daylight. They're the opposite of the gremlins. So now you've seen some tars. They're like Agent Anderson. I'm going to say that a million times. In the Matrix, they just grab any slimes they can, and all of them turn into these tars. And they're pretty formidable, but you saw that I was able to use water to fight them off because I'm just good at these things. I'm not good at these things. That's literally what you're supposed to do. So with this time currency, we have a lot of questions about how to achieve good time usage by the player. And one of them is parsable, I should say, traversal times. Like, it makes sense for me to take this long to get to a gate, not because I want to walk this far and spend this many minutes, but just because this spaces the content out. These slimes move. This makes it less likely that they'll come through this door. You have spaces like this, which is known as the transition, which had a nice puzzle that you had to put different flavors of poop into these guys' mouths. And they, once that happened, there was a song and that door opened. We are not going to go in there just yet, but this is the ancient stone ruins. There's some cool stuff. It's where my quantums came from, and the lemons, the phase lemons that the quantums love. And so each area has a unique set, except for the transition area. It's just got those things. It has a unique set of slimes, but with a lot of overlap. It's got a unique set of resources, but with some overlap. Yeah, I've got a lot of extractors here to deal with. We'll go find them. So when you make these choices, you are asking a different question, and not how do I balance the game, but instead your question becomes, how do I spend the currency of player time and spend it wisely? Be frugal about it. I said in the last week that you want the minimum amount of game, the minimum, to get your point across. That's true for, what is that? Some kind of nonsense. We're going to have to go back, obviously, and come back. This is not a pain at all. This is part of the game balance. I need these science resources, and I have overindulged in setting up too many. Luckily, the slimes don't want to go after these, but, yeah. Come here. Ah, there's something like that. Okay, well, I'm coming back for these. I think there was one more. Nope, just 3. Oh, I keep trying to do that. So this is a 2-tripper. Maybe no, it's a 2-tripper. So convenient teleporter takes us right back home. But we still have to run to the science area. There are a lot of players who are more efficient than I. There are a lot of players who build these ranch layouts better than I, and I looked at a few, and then I decided I'm not going to care. Which is another part of the player behavior that we're going to talk about at the very end. When I go back, this is a good opportunity for me to ramble on while we traverse. So with time being the ultimate currency, time being the thing that you're spending of the player's life, and hopefully giving them an experience that they will enjoy, the fun that was in your mind, in their mind. You're also spending it in terms of the brain load, the cognitive load, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago. This cognitive load is your ability to keep things in your mind. And they include everything. They include remembering that at night these guys come out and during the day they don't, because they're phosphors, and you know that phosphors disappear during the day. You need to know that you have 250 stamina, and you lose it at a pretty rapid pace when you use your jetpack, and you use it at a less rapid pace when you run with it. You need to remember that you have to have a water tank full, because that's how you fight TARs. You have to, and stop agitated slimes from being agitated. You have to remember the value of a slime. You have to remember to go back and get your extracted goods. You have to remember. You have to remember. You have to remember. Also, with this, you have to learn. You have to learn. You have to learn. Because if you stop learning, the game stops being fun. If everything is known to you, then you're moving into a different type of game. You're not in what is a traditional game. You're in something like a comforting simulation, which is fine. I enjoy them probably more than anyone else. So when we think about time for the player, we can point to some pretty obvious things, like automation tools. You saw that I had those hoppers where I can put food in and then leave. Before I had those hoppers, I was guaranteed 100% that my slimes would be angry, and some of them would have escaped. There'd be whirlwinds everywhere, weird tentacles coming up, dogs and cats living together. So these automated systems are an obvious savings on time, and the player immediately recognizes this, because efficiency, as I've said in at least 20 streams, efficiency is what a player lusts after, and I use that word very clearly, because lust is a very different thing than wants. It's a very different thing than I think I want this. It is a thing where immediately it grabs you by your heartstrings and says, you have to do this. And if you think about it, you'll see what I mean. It is so important to the player to be efficient that a lot of games have been ruined because the experience in the designer's mind was very different than the meta balance, or simply just the strats that players found that the designer didn't find. And then you got a bad game. You've got a broken game. You've got an exploitive game. All those are examples. So these automated systems require some setup. They require money. They require your time. They require your brain space. Likewise, you saw that there was a Brazilian slimes, knowing their various vibes, like these guys who have very valuable poop, but like to send up stars that are apparently artillery. I'm going to give some of these to the machine. You have to remember that that chickens stop breeding once there are 12 in the cage, like here. I just dumped a bunch in there. I have no idea how many's in there, but it's definitely 1,000. You have to remember that these odd onions are going to have, more than half of them are going to be carrots, so it's a harder thing to farm than anything else. You have to remember, you have to learn. Oh, I got to the glass desert. What do I do there? What is the differences? Oh my goodness, the sun is suddenly firing rays of lasers at me. Is that a problem? So these are things you have to learn. And when I get into the final zone, I've actually never been there. It's the same deal. I'm going to have to learn. While I'm still at the same time, I have to remember. So you can see how this becomes a weight, a burden upon the player. You know, cognitive load. It's a load. You know, I didn't come up with the word, but it's very purposeful. So because of this, we have some options as game designers. And the big one is minimum game possible. I've already mentioned that. And it is, you know, that should be your watchword. Also, not just because it's more fun for the player, it's more understandable for the player, the cognitive load is lower for the player, but also it costs less money to develop. And also, you need less artists. Also, you need less brain space of your game designer. They can focus on other more important things. So, everyone wins with the minimum game possible. We have more about time as a currency. I mean, I'm doing this mostly because we got time. You see that guy blew up. You get 3 with these guys. 3 goes around the merry-go-round. Okay, I'm going to drop these off and definitely not worry about those things. They're jelly stones. Actually, you know what? The buzzwax is less valuable. Oh, man. Wow, you're just making it hard on me, friends. I just want my jelly stones. I just want my $2. Up, there we go. We got these guys again. You see how they're changing others? And only water will stop them. It's like those aliens from Signs. There's an ancient movie from a problematic era. I need water. Alright, let's drop this stuff off, and then we're going to do some real adventuring. Not that this isn't real adventuring. There's a cost in terms of my time, in terms of my cognitive load, but also in terms of my ranch health and my ability to withstand going back and forth to the same place. And so that brings up an interesting concept, which is not just that time being the ultimate currency, but also risk versus reward is the way you spend that currency. So risks, right? We have the day-night cycle. You've seen it go through a couple of times. It's 7 a.m. You can see the sunrise icon in the corner, and indeed, I showed you the sun rising. These guys who came out at night, they mostly come out at night. Mostly. But they're gone during the day. The giant mosh pits that are at the end of these various levels, which just breed the heck out of these tars, which then go on to cause havoc. All of these things conspire to create risk. They also conspire to create reward. And they are indeed 2 parts of the exact same picture. So the day-night cycle is a good way to start because time, spoiler on my next week's thing, time is important both to the player in terms of the real world, but also in terms of the game world. During the day, also, it takes only one shot with water. Oops, didn't have the right one set. It only takes one shot with water to destroy a tar. It takes two during the night. Risk, different risk. We have various areas that have feral slimes that attack no matter what kind they are. We have slimes that are always kind of passively attacking you, like the mosaics. We have slimes that never ever can do any damage. They just hop around like the pinks. And all of these things add risks, add rewards. Some of these risks are, minuscule. If you are amongst a bunch of pinks, then you have no risk except for the fact that you might run into one and it might knock you off a cliff or something. Here we are in the desert. And I got new material. Actually, I've been needing lava dust. Can't remember if I have any more of these doodads. I do. I was very thoughtful. Okay, we're going to advance drill it up. There's a pink right there. That's their species, by the way. It's not an identifier or anything. There's other parts of the risk versus reward cycle. For instance, we're going to do actually one of each. For instance, which slimes I choose to have in my city, in my ranch, call it a city in my head, will decide a lot of things. It will decide how much investment I'll have to make in keeping them in there, like the Quantums, who want to teleport out, and like the Tangles, who want to just take things from the others. We have these dervishes that shoot out those whirlwinds that are a true pleasure to deal with. There we go. Put up an apiary. Deserts are famous for their apiaries. Because I have that teleporter right there, I feel empowered to just put a bunch of these down. I don't have to walk for several minutes like you saw me do to the Mossland. Instead, my entire trouble is finding little nodes where I can put these down at, which is a good problem to have as a player. So if we have day-night cycle and the slime types and how they react to the day-night cycle, we also have, that's a teleporter now, we also have other aspects. How the slimes interact with each other, and you've seen some of that. You've seen them form these largos, and also you've seen tars come out of this. In fact, there's a tar right there. I heard him. Oh. During the day, only one shot. One ping only. I swear I'm going to do instead of bad voice acting, I'll do Sean Connery impressions from now on. Some things in this room don't react well with bullets. Don't worry, I was just trolling you. I think that's the way we talk about these things nowadays. My bad. So, with this risk and reward, we have a very subtle one that's kind of unique to this game, which is how these slimes interact, which I just talked about, but also their diets. Each of them requires a different favorite food if you want to double your production, which you do. And you saw that sometimes I just threw randomly stuff in there, and sometimes I cared. And that has to do with how difficult it is to get it, how much of a pain in the neck is it to get it, right? And you feel that in your bones as a player. The fact that I had to go back is kind of physically painful to me. But I might remember, I can't remember if it's fruit or, I can just come back. The Quantum dude. Not the Quantum dude, the Dervish dude. So, hopefully, I will be able to get back to the Gordo, which is the giant version of these slimes. And you feed them about 50 things of their type. And, oh, that's a pen. I don't need that. And then they explode in pleasure. and you get cool resources out of it. And often you get a key, which is the gating mechanism for the content of this game. We will definitely talk about that later. So the slime diets, how hard it is to ranch them, the ranch layout, those are levels of difficulty that are still risks to the player, because you're risking your economics, you're risking your time, risking my time and your time trying to remember how to get up to this thing. Pretty sure, okay, it wants fruit because it's a dervish and it just follows its kind. But as you can see, it's a desert. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my teleporter and go get some fruit. And if I'm feeling really zesty, I'll try and remember what a quantum prefers. But it doesn't really matter in this case. It's either 25 or 50. I can carry 50, so I can carry 50 of every fruit type. Okay, I'm going the wrong way again. I frequently fail to find the spot I just came from. Oh, what's this? This is a fountain. They are a puzzle, and it will take a while to explain, so I'm gonna not. But you've seen these like rainbow domes. They are the result of me doing good things, and among them is waking up these fountains so the whole desert can bloom. It's the kind of the passive story, the environmental story of this place, told entirely through game activity. But sadly, we're not here for that. We're here for game balance. So the slime diet, the ranching challenges, the day-night cycle, and the specific types of slimes, they get more and more difficult to handle. Oh, it's up there. It's up there. More and more difficult to handle as you go through to further and further from your ranch. So I should mention that this is the planet Far, Far Away. That's its name. And on this planet, we have ranchers because they recognize the economic potential of the plort poop. And each of the plort poops actually has a little bit of lore around what they're used for industrially or not back on Earth, and they're kind of fun. Some of them are obvious, like the rads are used to make nuclear power. I do not know how to operate this machine. All right, we're going this way because I'm too proud to look at my map. I'm sure someone has been paying attention more closely than me, and it's like, no, you fool. I'm going the right way now. So we haven't seen the sun turn into a deadly laser yet, but it will at some point. And the only way you can be absolutely certain that there will be no deadly laser on you is to come inside these things. Now you know why these domes exist. Okay, so Zorp. We are on a mission to get fruit. So those are veggies, those are veggies. I am going to cheat. Oh man, I just saw that, Ministress, because I don't have the dilling that I have on my personal. That's a deep cut. That hurts. Hey Pri, how you doing? Ministress there just said something hurtful. I will remember it forever. I am looking for what this Gordo eats. Prickle pears. Oh, okay, I don't have a ton of prickle pears, but we'll look. Yeah, I need to get the dilling set up so I can catch chat more often. Because chat is engagement. I need to set up a farm of these, but as you saw, I'm running out of farm space, or ranch space. But these 20 plus a few extras are going to get me through it, getting that dervish. And then we can see it explode in pleasure. And, you know, that's why you logged on today. So with the, I'm not going to belabor this, but the risk versus reward is very different in this game. Not only just in ranching, like the difficulties of keeping this hunter happy. Oh, he's turned on his cloaking device. But also the larger difficulties of the quantums, the larger difficulties of the fire ones that you only caught a glimpse of because I have way too much to do and I don't want to show you Pokemons all day. But all of these conspire to work with that time as an ultimate currency. That's where I was going with this. And so this time as an ultimate currency is the lever around everything happens. So for the rest of tonight's stream, I just want you to constantly put in your head whenever I say anything, and the player has to spend time to do it. If you think along those lines, you are picking up what I'm putting down. I'm not even pausing for notes. I'm just reeling from the fact that we've got the dervishes perpetually angry over here. I didn't even say anything. It's because I'm not feeding them their favorite food. Oh, and I'm not feeding them at all. That automation, remember I said that, you know, automation is, oh you guys. The automation is wonderful and easy to do if you stay at home. But the second you leave, they get unruly. And you have to deal with their individual methods of unruliness. So over here where the explodey guys are, launching the star artillery, there used to be just 50 pinks, and that's because there was an achievement for jumping in with 50 pinks. And then I accidentally turned them into Largos, and again, I'll talk about that in a minute. And it wasn't an adorable ball pit anymore. It was a terrifying giant ball pit with spikes, and they eventually got out because they're much bigger, and I had them all over. They were eating my crops, and I ended up having to well, if you've read Of Mice and Men, this was my Lenny moment. See, I can get multiple literary allusions in. I don't have to just do Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. Oh, more prickly pears. Brilliant. That will absolutely save me time and effort. Except for I'm going to be spending most of my time and effort trying to find where that quantum, or the Dervish Gordo is. So we're going to get into a lot of this stuff in part 2, which is right now. So part 1 was about the basic economics of games and what game balance is, and therefore hang on, I'm just catching. Oh, okay. I cannot do third person, but Ministress mentioned this also. I'm going to try and keep my gun sway down. It actually doesn't have the sway option, and as I told Ministress, I tend to do this when I'm running around so I can see everything, and yeah, I'll try and keep that down. It's hard for me because I've played shooters for so many years before, you know, I grew up, and it's a hard habit to break. And yeah, sorry about missing chat. I'll tab and check it out. The phone version is taken over by my notes. We've seen what happens when my notes are not available. So part 2, just like part 1, had a quote, which was, you have one ball, but you have 3 hands. This next one is near and dear to my heart because it's an economic quote that I have repurposed cruelly. And that is, an economist cares about guns and butter, civilian versus military. But a game economist has to care about the guns, the butter spawn rate, the loot boxes that give you guns, the premium currency that allows you to buy those loot boxes, and the drop rates for all of the above. And this is all true. This is the stuff that goes through my mind if I even make one item in the game. How does it interact with the premium currency? How does it interact with stuff from an earlier tier? How does it interact with stuff from a later tier? Etc., etc., etc. It is an incredibly mentally demanding discipline, which is why I've been in it for 20 years. There is no greater pleasure than being exhausted after doing nothing but thinking all day. And it's a frequent problem I have. Oh, I went all the way back to the beginning. So the guy is up here, up top, the Largo, or the Gordo. So at least I know that I've failed with my map. Yeah, and again, I apologize, you two. I completely understand like that feeling, and I do not wish it upon you. But unfortunately, there's going to be some parkour coming up, and that's going to require me to bounce around my screen a tiny bit so I can keep track of what I'm up to. But I will try my darndest, because I like you guys, and I want you to enjoy this stream. He says, like, my hand's like shaking. It's not shaking, but I'm like, gotta keep it straight. I want to get up there. So I just said a kind of a silly quote that is only really funny to me, but all the different ways we have to juggle that one ball is the subject of this next part. So there are two main forms of progression, and I've shown you this just through playing. We've got the ranching, which involved me staying at home, interacting, getting food to the peeps, picking up their poop, selling it on the open market, and boy am I going to talk about the economics of that. I have a resource to alt-tab to. Instead of bad voice acting, I'm just going to give a long, boring, droning lecture on the money. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do any of that. But I certainly could with the information I now have at my fingertips. This is one of the fountains that you can raise. When you suck up some water, it turns into a 30-second timer, and if you can get to one of those fountains, you can wake it up. And I've done all the easy ones. Now all that's left are incredibly hard ones, and if you make a mistake in traversing like I just did, you're probably going to run out of time. But I'm going to make a go of it. I thought I saw one back here. And if not, no harm, no foul. It's just 30 seconds. Ouch. Strike out. That's okay. We're here to find that Gordo, and it's going to take us a while. This is going to be our exploration time, I suddenly feel. So the farm versus the explorer path. So in the farm, I've got guaranteed income, as long as I can keep the ranching under control, I guess is the right way to put it. Oh, that's where the fountain was. Maybe I'll make another go at it so you can see that happen. And this is not me being distracted. This is me trying to be the Gandalf in Moria. I do not remember this place. This will help me try and think of where it is. But really, you're here to listen to me talk about this thing. And fountain's over here. Excuse me, bud. Fountain is over here. Oh, Sojourner. You do this for a living? Apparently, I can't do this for a living. I was going to do one thing, just for funsies. Multiple fountains. Wonderful. We love them. Oh, it's because I'm all the way back here. Faith in Bagora. Okay, the fountain's down here. Or whatever it's called. Or not. You know what? I really do know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm 100% trying to get up there. Trying to remember how you do. It ain't this way. So the farming gives you that guaranteed income. It's safe. You don't have these tars unless you do a bad job of managing your ranch, which is something that's happened to me a couple times, is I've created tars by accident. So farming, though, is almost certainly safe. It's definitely the thing you can do to make a lot of money, which I did. And for me, it's enjoyable, cozy gameplay. But it is equally valid, very equally valid, to be an adventurer. First off, there's plenty of slimes out here, and there's plenty of plorts to be had. So you could conceivably never go home and just kind of live off the land. And this game supports that. That is a very difficult thing to pull off, and they did. It's the reason why I chose this game for game balance, because this is an absurd level of quality in the game balance that is not matched very often. Pri, I'm going to answer your question here in just a second. In my professional opinion, a game that has no reason to be fun is Don't Starve. And it's a clay game. Actually, I'm going to do you one better. It's Oxygen Not Included, which is one of my favorite games of all time. But it is a hardcore simulation. Hardcore. Probably one of the most hardcore simulations I've ever played, and I've played pretty much all of them. And I think about it a lot for that reason. Here's a feral. It's going to try and eat me. It's definitely trying to ruin my day. Okay, you go down there, I'll go up here. So it's a hardcore simulation. It does not have a lot going for it. It's, you know, it's a clay game, so it's got stylized, cutesy graphics, but also kind of dark, and the game itself is very difficult to even understand how to succeed. And all you're trying to do is keep the thing afloat. I mean, I do love Don't Starve. That's why I moved on. You know, Vampire Survivors, I bounced right off of. I bought it, and then within the 2-hour mark for Steam, I was like, let me give this back. Money is too tight for me to play Vampire Survivors. But every other game I buy. Like I said, we're going to just hunt for this Gordo. And the reason why is it has a key. And I'm stuck in my progression until I get that key. And the irony is I saw the thing earlier. I showed you the little purple bump. Oh, let's get some loot. I've definitely not been here. So most of these are just visual styles. So now all of the tangles have that cutesy Nightshade look. So, Oxygen Not Included, incredibly crunchy simulation. Has no right to be fun. And yet, it has a huge following, including me. And the reason why it's fun has a lot to do with this game balance stuff. It is an obsessively balanced game, and it does a great job of hiding the details of its game balance, which is arguably more important. Because if you don't show the player your tricks, then you're an excellent magician. If you do show them your tricks, then you are a different thing, probably not an excellent magician. So this looks like a puzzle. I am not going to deal with it right now, but it looks like if I put in some things, another thing will happen. That means I know where we are. Yeah, okay. I think this might lead to the Gordo, but I'm starting to lose faith. I actually only ever visited it once and saw that it needed fruit, and I didn't have any fruit, and I wandered off. And now I regret everything. I think I'm at the southern... Oh no, I'm at the northern edge, which does it... It's a different sort of gate. And I haven't been there either. But we want to make our way back. The Gordo's over here, friends. I get so caught up talking about games, and more importantly... Oh, I didn't turn off my Steam thinger. 1 second. We don't need to know what my friends and former co-workers are playing. This orange sky means that the sun is now a deadly laser, and you'll see deadly laser stuff coming down. While I desperately try to bring back my reputation by finding things. Everyone knows that I'm not ever going to be a master at playing these games because I change every week. And it took me days to get myself set up just for this session. Not, you know, not real life days, but, well, real life days, but not every day, not all day. I got stuff to do. So this mouth is how you unlock new fountains. If I had a dervish, oh, hello, deadly laser. If I had a dervish hoop, then I would throw it in there. You need to do 3 of those. I'm going to try and mentally note that it's up here when I come back to this place. But right now, the sun is a deadly laser. It is not messing around. It is damaging my calm. So back to our topics. Ouch. So the farmer has a guaranteed life. But they still need to go out and get more stuff. They need to get out and get food for their slimes. They need to go out and get more slimes, new slimes. They need to pick up things like this large chunk of uneaten chickens. This may be a record. So that way they can feed their slimes. So they can breed the chickens. So they can breed their slimes. So the farmer still has to do exploring. And the explorer ultimately is going to have to do some farming because you aren't going to be able to get all the things. Okay. This running around in circles is getting annoying. It does not mean I'm onto something. Quite the opposite. Or am I? No, we'll keep them rolling. Because in a way, this typifies things that I am exploring. And because I'm exploring, I am losing opportunities. But I'm hoping for new opportunities. Just looking. Huh. PNG tuber idle. Oh, Holocure. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up with the chat, but it looks like Pre-Administress has got this going. I somehow sensed that you two would have things to conversate about. Though you're both just acquaintances. It's just a guess. So, let's look at it from the other way. Explorers. Do they need to go home sometimes? Absolutely. They need to recover. They need to rest. If they get killed, or sorry, knocked out in this game, due to its theme, then you start back at home. So there's always home, 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 home. It's never just one thing. But the player is expected and will naturally gravitate towards one of them. Some people like to just devil-may-care, explore all day, and people like me are downright frustrated at this amount of walking around with nothing happening. It's like the back rooms, but worse. That was my hello, fellow kids moment. So that one over there is another slime, or is that the one we want? No, the one we want is purple. So when we start to talk about risk and reward, for the explorer it's obvious, right? You could, oh, we found, oh no, we didn't find him. We're back to where we were. The risk for a explorer is pretty obvious. The risk for a farmer, though, includes not just the farm breaking down, your slimes getting out and interacting with each other in ways you don't want, which has all happened to me. But there's also things like trying to be economically successful. It's easy to do in this game. This game is not really about gating you economically, except to a light degree. But it is about... I'm up at the north end again. Ha 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 ha. But it is about making sure that when you are gated, it is both a gate for the explorer and for the farmer. And that is a spoiler for some later stuff. So, your income from farming is steady. Your income from exploring and just grabbing things is not steady. But big rewards could happen when you find valuable... Over there. No, that's the other one. I don't know what to feed it. I had that, there she blows moment. Held it straight. How do I get up there? It's not even the one we want. I just want to see one of these up close with my human eyes. It ain't gonna be this way. I don't know, maybe I can mantle my way up. So the risk of economic slowness is very much on the mind of a farm character, and it hurts just as much as an exploring player getting knocked out. And the reason why is, again, that lust for efficiency that I like to say all the time. I'll wait for that to recharge. The farmer recognizes that, for instance, I recognize that I have 2 different sets of honey largos, and one of them is honey and tabby, which is not a very valuable resource. And so ideally we're going to get rid of them, maybe even this session, and see what else we can do. Oh, it wants veggies. You shake fist. But at least I know where his front is. You can come up from behind him. Them don't know at all how we address a slime. You can come up behind them and you can see that it's a tunnel. I have bypassed it with my huge brain. So inefficiency by the farmer is just as painful as getting knocked out for the explorer. Because when you get knocked out, you lose all your stuff. But, you know, I've got very limited inventory slots. Getting inefficient as a farmer is the same. You're not losing inventory, but you're not using inventory. So that brings us to the risk and reward of largo creation. So those largos are those big guys. There's one down there. And like I said, they happen when one species of slime. I've been wondering what those bells are. I'm sure it's a thing, and I don't want to go find out. So largos are a combination of 2 slimes. They are a thing that naturally happens, as you can see, all the time. And if they get 3 instead of 2, then we have the tars, which you have to fight, because if not, they'll Agent Johnson their way. So okay, we're back to here, and that's good because I remember seeing the big guy, not from here, but from the next one over. So these largos are very valuable, but I already told you one story, which is I made a bunch of largos out of my pinks, and all of a sudden they were too big. There were 50 of them. They were too big, and that caused us problems. So when you create these largos, you have this very interesting bit of game balance, because you take 2 valuable ones, like say Mosaic, which is the ones that shoot those star fireballs, and say Quantum, who can teleport. Very valuable materials they make. This one is a Dervish Quantum, or Dervish, it's just a straight Dervish, sorry. But Dervishes can also, they can all be mixed, and they become interesting as largos. That was a Mosaic Dervish. Very useful, but shoots stars and shoots windstorms. So, not fun. This guy is a pink and a tangle, so it can send out those shoots, but also it's a pink, which means it can eat anything. So there's advantages. Things are good when you mix up these different sorts of. I'm not going to deal with these anymore. I've got stuff to do. I'm just going to pop over here and dispose of them and not do that anymore this session. Okay, back to work. Still trying to find that Gordo. So when you create these largos, you have like a couple problems to solve in your mind. How much do you want to deal with the trouble of various valuable largos versus how much do you want just guaranteed low stress income? And my particular ranch has a mixture of both. And many players do, until they reach the end game, and then they stop caring about efficiency, and they just try and make the funnest things possible. And so, like, Honey Quantum is a great example of honey is a pretty inoffensive slime. It doesn't do a lot that's dangerous, and it's worth a good chunk of money. And of course, the quantums are worth a good chunk of money, but they go bloopy de bloop. And so, you know, that's a known high value, but you still have to remember he's up there. Unfortunately, the sun is a deadly laser right now, so I gotta wait till that's done. Really, we're at the entrance, and he's up there. I've been trolled by this game. There's this convenient ramp to jump across. So when you choose plorts, or sorry, when you choose, come on, baby. When you choose your Largos, your two species to smash into a Largo to make plorts, you do have to think about spacing. I mentioned that where the quantums were over there, and then I had the Tangles by themselves because they send out those shoots. The Dervishes are also by themselves because they do the windstorm, etc., etc., etc. Sorry, I need to check chat. I have a feeling important things are being said. Let us leave. Can it be? Have we finally reached our goal? Okay, let's check chat and then... wow. You all got... Okay. I feel like I don't need to be a part of this part of the conversation. It does look like Arizona. I don't think you know, Ministress, but I lived in Arizona for almost 2 years. I did 2 summers, that's right, and everyone was impressed. You know, that's the impressive thing. All right, hang on to your butts. We are going to explode this guy, and he's going to spit out a bunch of loot, and it's going to go down there if I don't act fast. So this fellow likes prickly pears. You can see little hearts coming out. And here he goes. And did I get a key? Huh. Thought this one had a key. I mean, it had this, whatever that is. Oh, some primordial oil. By the way, this game, you can't have a cozy game, you can't have a game that's cute without a million dad jokes. It's just, it comes with the territory. So, sorry not sorry for every one of these dad jokes I chuckle at. Like primordial oil. So we're going to move on from Largo creation, because I think I've shown more than told in this one. You can see that some of these are problematic. Some of these are very useful, like this pink is, you know, I can feed it anything. On the other hand, pink poop is not very valuable. So that quantum we saw earlier, it wants veggies, which I don't even have, so let's go do something else. I'm very disappointed. I thought I was going to get the key and crack the new region. But not this stream. But maybe, you know, the night is young. And by the night is young, I mean I got 40 minutes left. Though I typically go over by a couple minutes because time is no ruler of me. But getting lost is a ruler of me. I can't believe I did this for the 10th time. Someone should take away my video gaming license. Alright, so if we have to worry about acquisition, if we have to worry about management, and we have to worry about, if we have to worry about how this all comes together in game balance, then we should definitely talk about market manipulation. Because I'm a game economist. I'm the one who says we should definitely talk about market manipulation. Because all of this comes down to you need cash. Are you an explorer, farmer, it doesn't matter. You need cash. And you get cash by selling, poop, the plorts. And so you want to make sure you maximize the combination of your time and the value. And so this gets into the crunchiest, nerdiest thing of the session. Sorry, not sorry. There is an algorithm that has been found that explains how prices are determined. So you saw that at the beginning, that they had prices, and then they said, oh, this one's trending up, this one's trending down. It's really a lot of smoke and mirrors. It is not an actual true market, except in a couple ways. In fact, only one way. So each of these plorts, each of the proof plorts, is worth a certain base value, and then it can alter itself, its type, between 40 and I think 65%. I would have to look at my notes, and there's no need. So it has a range just based on its species. Also, the entire market itself for all plorts changes by 40 to 65%, I think, every day. So that creates some real price volatility for your various plorts, because, I mean, it can move almost 150% based on this. 120 something percent. And with that knowledge, we can look at this again. Wow, I did this right. I got right here when it's time to talk about it. We can look at this and we now know, oh, the day has changed. This doesn't take long. Okay, we can see that the prices, if I say that this is all smoke and mirrors, what are we seeing? This 63 was higher than yesterday. That's all that means. It doesn't have anything to do if it's trending up. It's a trailing indicator, not a leading indicator. You can go look, you can go open an economic textbook to find out what those mean, but it's in the name. A trailing indicator is something that follows behind. A leading indicator predicts. Quick drinky break. So because of this, we have one other thing. There is a market capacity for each of these plorts. And so every time I put even one in, I'm increasing how much is on the market. And there is a hidden value that is different for each plort, because why not? There's a hidden value that determines the effect of the amount that's in the market. So if I add 1,000, I'm adding 1,000 to the market, and that's going to affect the price by a lot, actually. And so say the market capacity is 100. If I go above 100, then I've completely saturated the market, and the price is in half. And then there's a variation. It's a scale, and the randomness is based on Perlin noise. And like I said, it gets really crunchy, and I was fascinated with the algorithm. But in the end, the only thing you need to know is the price is halved if you put a ton in, and you have to wait for it to come back, because the market saturation, the market capacity, loses whatever's in there by 25% each day. So ultimately, if you completely saturate the market, then in 4 days, with you not putting any more of it in, it will have corrected itself. So that requires a lot of self-discipline. And you'll find that players build these silos. I've thought about building one here, and they'll load up various things like that are high value plorts, and they will just sit on them and wait for the price to go up until it gets to a price they find acceptable. There's the other group to which I belong, which is, I ain't got time for that nonsense. I'm going to always sell. The second I get it, I'm just going to sell it. I'm not going to worry about the capacity. I'm not going to worry about the price. I'm just going to worry about getting rid of it, selling it. I'll get some money no matter what. And so because of this, a lot of my stuff is saturated. And one way that I deal with that is I just try and focus on a different place and a different group of my slimes. I'm going to get better and better at that each time. So these puddle plorts are a classic example. I don't grab them very often, and so they are good for price. It's been more than 4 days since I turned them in, so whatever price difference there was has been corrected. I don't even know what it is. And then I'm going to put them in, and that's going to add to the market capacity, and it might, it's going to adjust the price very little. It's like a J curve, and then it makes it more and more the more and more you add. The chickens have very evocative sounds. Almost sound like they're saying, "What the fuck?" But, I just work here. Let's get rid of these things. Oh, that's right. I was going to put the mint mangoes with my rads over here. They've already got more than enough mint mangoes, but I was passing by. So market manipulation is basically between patience and impatience, short-term gain and long-term gain. It's just like the stock market itself. And every game that has a market is like this. Now, not all of them simulate price changes, and almost none of them simulate it this way. I certainly wouldn't have thought of it doing it this way, but it's great because the player can see the effects, but the hidden razzle-dazzle is hidden. So quantum plorts, I put a bunch in yesterday. The price got depressed. But these puddle guys, they're about where the price should be. The rad ones, it will never recover. I put them in every chance I can. So to talk about that, these pinks when I started, because that's all I had to spend, went all the way down to 6, which I think was the minimum. It's half of this. So this is now at its base price, its settled price. Well, thank you, Pri, for coming. I don't know how long ago you said that, but I'll just tell you at work. Oh, wow, Ministers, I caught up with that thing. Yeah, I really loved my time in Arizona, and I actually was a volunteer for this thing called the Riparian Institute, and I led tours in the sun of the Riparian Institute, which is like a nature preserve. It was insane. It was definitely interesting. I would go out in like 110 degree heat during the summer, and I would normally have 2 miserable elderly people with me. And I had a whole route built entirely around keeping the elderly people alive, because, you know, I was young and strong back then. And yeah, it's a thing. Like, here's the burrowing owls over by this shade, you know, stuff like that. All right, we're going to go to another adventure. Another place. You've seen the desert. You've seen the mossy place. We're going to cut through the mossy place. Oh, and you saw the indigo. No, whatever that is. We're going to cut through all that and go into the stone fortress while I talk a little bit more about market manipulation and then talk about Red Mars, because I'm looking at the time. We're doing okay. So the last thing I want to say about market manipulation is you have the always sellers like me. You have the careful hoarders, like a lot of players actually, and a lot of in between, people who hoard until they get impatient. Again, exactly like the stock market. You have your short sellers, you have your diamond hands as they call them, and you have your people who just do whatever based upon, you know, voodoo and hope and air. And all those are valid, by the way, because you only have so much time. Time is the ultimate currency. I could say it again, but why? So, in the end, the game's economy only has one job, and that is to be balanced enough and fictionally consistent enough, look like an actual market, that the player doesn't really cotton onto it unless they delve deep into the wiki and/or figure it out themselves, which I was more of the wiki guy, but once I read a little bit about how it worked, it's not rocket surgery. It's literally just math, and you know, it's slightly past high school math, but really not much. It was actually the kind of math was from a class I failed in college. Don't tell my employers. But somehow in 20 years I learned math without going to school for it. There's a lesson in there for everyone, children. If only we could learn it. So this is the ancient stone ruin. It's kind of a cool place. It was a giant puzzle. Each of those orbs that's kind of doing that blue thingy, you turned and twisted them to open and close different doors. And you finally got the last door open. I'm showing you this place because where that doorway is down there was a lava Gordo who gave me the key to go to the next place, which is what I wanted for tonight's session. And so this was more a show and tell while I moved on to part 3. But before I can do that, I need to talk about the book Red Mars. So if you haven't read it, it's by Kim Stanley Robinson, who wrote a ton of books back in the day. I think he's still writing books, but he got really popular for the Red Mars series and another series that I'm embarrassed because I read it and I cannot for the life of me remember what it is. And I'll check chat and hopefully someone's like, oh yeah, this one, bar. And if not, that's cool because it's Kim Stanley Robinson. He's like I said, he's just slightly more famous than China Miéville. And I love him just slightly less. So in Red Mars, the story is of the first 100 colonists to land on Mars. And they are like an insanely talented bunch of just super geniuses. However, they also had to survive, and however, they immediately broke into factions, as humans do. So so with this, we have some interesting context that's based upon our previous subject. So time is the ultimate currency. So there's this moment in the book, and it's a moment in the book where the colonists sit down to debate how they're going to allocate their very limited resources. They have urgent survival needs, but they also have long-term terraforming goals. Some of them believe that the minimum of aesthetics is more valuable than just bare survival. And each of these views are not only conflicting, but they're deep in the heart. Even your heart as the reader, you will absolutely side with one of these factions because they represent the span of human society. And that's what this game does a little bit less of, but it kind of does a little bit of, and that's not really the thing I want to talk about. Really, in the end, time is the ultimate currency for that game for the exact same reason as this game. You can only do so many things, and the world, in that case, and the player, in this case, is only capable of handling so many things. So much cognitive load, so much physical labor to actually do the thing. So, these conflicting views match up very closely with the way you have to think about time in one of these games. Also in this book, they had the equivalent of these farm and exploration pathways. In fact, very clearly. In their case, they had a kind of a famous philosophical series of discussions between Anne Claymore, who is a geologist, spoiler, my favorite character, and this guy named Sachs, who is a super physicist, and he's argued this whole time for complete and immediate terraforming. And Anne represented the red faction, which is do the minimum amount of terraforming, just find a way for humans to exist here. And, Sachs was the green faction, who wanted to turn this place into a green and beautiful land. And ultimately, one side has to lose. And it does get violent, and there are deaths among the 100, which is sad because, spoiler, in the second book, they achieve immortality because, why not? They're super geniuses. And apparently being on Mars kind of gets those juices going. But the point is, there's deaths, there's chaos, and there's horror because, these are the smartest of a generation, and they should be above this kind of crap. And they are not, because humans never are. It's just part of who we are. And so this sort of dynamic is a lot like the farm and explore paths, because there were numerous times where Sachs was like, we need to bunker down, and just, kind of, they sent out zeppelins to put bacteria all over the place, and they created a solar shade, and then they created a space elevator, which was destroyed in one of the coolest, probably the coolest sci-fi moment. Because, lost my train of thought. Oh, because Kim Stanley Robinson really knows his business when it comes to understanding just what can happen when a giant fiber line wraps itself around the planet 5 times. Spoiler, it destroys almost everything. Where's those chimes at? Do you hear the chimes? I just remembered this guy wants veggie, so if we find him... Don't need that. Okay, so this farm versus explore matches pretty closely with the reds versus the greens. The greens wanted to terraform Mars, but they didn't want to go out into Mars until it's terraformed. kind of selfishly. The Greens, or the Reds, actually spent all their time in excursions, exploring, trying to catalog Mars, especially because they knew it was going to be destroyed by the Greens, because they lost. There were many more Greens. The logical argument was we were sent here to make this place, for humans. We can't do that if we're hiding in a bunker. So that is the farm versus explorer in a nutshell, because the farm was safe. They could terraform to their heart's content and never have to leave, and they just had to deal with surviving within their own base. Whereas, totally forgot about this one. And so ultimately, the explorers lost and the farmers won because there is much more risk on this fictional Mars than there ever will be ranching slimes. Oh, can't put those in. I can't put the pepper jam in. Kind of beautiful in its way. So risk-reward trade-offs. The whole terraforming project got more and more extreme. Much more extreme. They dug a borehole, which was a hole all the way to the mantle of the planet, crust, mantle, core, which is something we've theorized for a long time would be a good way to heat up Mars. But on the other hand, that's extreme. That's engineering that we can't even conceive of in this era. Loot. Redeem myself in this boring stream. Just kidding. I know this is bad. You don't have to convince me. All you have to do is convince me where this flippin' dude is. Okay, I opened up this side door using a precious key in the hopes that it gave me more access to something useful. So I'm going to hope that was this leadership jelly. So we saw it from the far north. We're at the far east. In the far, far away. This planet, by the way, is called Far, Far Away. They definitely solved a lot of narrative challenges with that. So there were catastrophic outcomes to the stay-at-homes. There were catastrophic outcomes. Back off, Farrell. There were catastrophic outcomes to the explorers. Both of them suffered greatly under the terraforming. It did things that were very bad for human survival, and they barely survived. Meanwhile, I hear Tars. Meanwhile, in another part, in Deimos, to be specific, a group of rebels basically formed their own mini colony that was built on aesthetics and beauty and stuff like that. And they did just fine for a long time until Deimos was dropped onto Mars as kind of that was the space elevator. It's kind of the climax of the book. Oh, that's a gold. Do I have the right thing? No, it's too late anyway. That's where you get the dollar bills, my friends. Okay, I'm going around in circles in a new way, so that's, that's progress. Could one of my moderators please take... Oh, we don't have other moderators. And I can't interact with this because, for whatever reason, Streamlabs, again, won't give me permission. I'll take care of it in just a second on the other chat. I think I have permissions. But if not, live and love. That person has a job. It's a crappy job. All right, we're running out of time, and I've got a little bit more to talk about. So the other thing in the novel was about resource scarcity and management. That should be obvious in the context of this game, and it should be obvious in the context of a book about colonizing Mars. Oh, I had a dream that maybe it. Oh my goodness! I think it might be. Now to get over there. Okay. Traversal, by the way, is a big way you balance the game. Okay, so later in the novel, there is Earth creates this economy of these large corporations basically setting unrealistic goals, and the amount of money, the amount of resources that were allocated to the colonists was adjusted on the fly all the time. So they had no certainty about their Mars dollar, so to speak. And so, what's the response to that? A gray market and a black market. Each of the factions basically established their own currency and basically established their own economy, and then they had currency exchanges. Oh. They had currency exchanges and such. Ganbare! Where am I? Oh. Ganbare indeed. And this is a natural thing that happens when an economy gets locked down. And this is a good analogy for games and game balance. If the money is too short, then the player is going to go to extreme lengths to try and get some money, and probably not have fun. If the game economy gives you too much money, which arguably this game does if you spend a lot of time farming, again, you've trivialized, a big lever for your game balance, and that is also not cool. I'm in the what year is it phase of trying to find this thing. Again, this isn't what I thought I was going to spend my time on, but this sure beats farming. Yeah, I've lost track of where I saw that. Normally it shows you on the map any known Gordos. I guess I never got close enough to it. Because this one, I looked it up while I was looking at chat. It does indeed have the key. And we've seen the door a couple times, though I don't know if you recognized it. So enough about that book. I want to suggest you read it because it's got a lot of details that is applicable to game balance and design, just based upon how these characters respond to some pretty obvious challenges to their survival, and the use of limited resources, the desire to use violence to get their way when things go terribly wrong, etc., etc., etc. Modern times may be your guide in understanding some of this as well. In a perfect world, this would be where the Gordo is, but it might be across the way over there. Don't lose faith, and don't stop believing. Yeah, happy to say. Ooh, nice try. Oh no, that's just it's a thing that's important, but not the thing I'm looking for. And I'm laser focused. And by laser focused, I'm giving this at least 1/10 of my attention. Okay, we're going to try over there. So, enough about Kim Stanley Robinson. I think it's a good book. It handles a lot of these things, especially how game balance affects difficulty. And that is part 3. The quote for this one is, "When you spin plates," because remember the theme is spinning plates for game balance reasons. When you spin plates, you have to commit. Totally. Because otherwise, you get nothing. Spinning plates requires you to be completely into it, or you have nothing. And that is game balance. You are spinning plates. And if you mess up any of them, then you don't really have a game. And I've given you a lot of reasons why in this stream. Now, someone is trying to knock the plates down, though. Someone is messing up your perfect balance. Someone is finding ways to mess up the plates in ways you never imagined, and that someone is the player. And since the player is trying to disrupt your plate spinning, you don't just have to spin plates, but you also have to figure out how to balance against player behavior. Because players are not at fault for doing things. Players are only at fault for doing things outside of the game systems. Like, you know, if they cheat, if they exploit. But everything else is fair game. It's just players figuring crap out. And if you don't like that, then you've misbalanced your game. So, as you can see, and by the way, this is the perfect way to talk about this. The progression in this game is gated through these Gordos. Getting the keys from these Gordos, or painfully not getting these keys while you're in front of a live audience. I wish that was the thing I was looking for. I'm back at the north end, aren't I? Oh. New and exciting place. Except for it's not new. Because I've done stuff here. I mean, this is where the door is that I want to open. That's why I keep ending up here. It's like wishful thinking. And I've lost track of the guy anyway. Because those glowing blue orbs are not the guy. Or the person. The individual. I have no idea. How do you talk about a slime? I mean, carefully, I'm sure. So we gate the progression through these Gordos. You can do whatever you want for as long as you want, but if you want to go to the next area, you have to find the right Gordo and you have to get the key from them, which means feeding them the thing that they want to be fed. Oh, whoa! I died! All right, well, now you see what happens when you're knocked out. I lost all my gear. It's a new day. I have failed. Or have I? This game has soft failure, and that is part of the soft gating, which we were going to get to in just a minute after we get through progression gating. So because this progression is gated, sometimes you can take quests here. We'll just do one for funs. This guy is more goods, and she's more raw stuff. She also wants a cup of sugar. And, oh, no, that's right. She wants just a grab bag of things. So she wants 2 crystals. I only have 1 in the pen. 1 painted chook, which I have, and 1 rad plort as well. So I could go and get the crystal. I'm struggling to remember exactly where, if I can do it quickly. And if not, then I just ignore that quest. So there is progression gated there. Sometimes it will show me a fruit that I've never seen before, and I know that I'm gated by progression there. Oh, you guys. They're hungry for chicken. So instead of belaboring that other part, and because we have 9 minutes left, I'm going to go to a fun place, which is the wilds, where everyone tries to eat me, and I have to try and collect these ridiculous durian-type fruits, and I get valuable cash and prizes for doing so. So we're going to go do that, mindlessly, trying to collect these fruits. And remember, all of these guys are mad at me. And I have a variety of tools, by the way, like shooting them off into the slime sea. But on the whole, I want to, find the fruits. And by the way, you're randomized where you show up, and you're randomized where the exit is. So, a little bit of an extra challenge. But we're here to not talk about that. We're here to talk about game balance. So because we gate the progression through the Gordos, we get into situations like this, where I don't have any way to progress to the last zone, which I was going to do live on camera. Sniff. So I'm kind of stuck doing side content, right? I'm doing this Kuka something. And then we get some really fun guys like these. These are those, these are saber versions of the hunters. And there's a variety of ways to deal with them. There's a variety of ways to catch them, but I am just mindlessly grabbing kookaburras and losing them. Yeah. Okay. Now we got a party. So this leads to a progression curve and power growth. Because at the beginning of this, I didn't have the water tank, which is currently empty. I didn't have access to a lot of things. So I grew in progression, but I also grew in power. And because of this, I can do more and difficult content. Jeez. Nice. That wasn't distracting at all. So by progression gating, we also create this world of progression and the way we can control it. And so the progression curve is probably the biggest handle outside of the specific game economy that we can pull. And we certainly do. So that's stuff like how many XP to level up, where are the mobs, how many mobs, what do the mobs drop, etc., etc., etc. So that's the part that most people think of when they think of progression. And that's the part a lot of people think of when they think of game balance. But the way you do this curve, balancing the amount of upgrades the player has available, which is an obvious way for the player to gain power, and it's an obvious problem for the designer on managing it. So game balance needs to include that, and the progression of that. I just went back the way I came. Did I get the fruit? Unknown. So this is a type of balancing that is a big lever. You got your economy, which is a huge lever, especially in an item-based game like this. And you got your level up system. Let's turn in these Kukadobas, and I'm going to get a very minor reward. Oh, I'm not even going to get a reward. Really? Okay, I got 2 tofu. You know, the upgraded fertilizer is a thing that I've been chasing for a while. We'll see if I can get it. We have time. I'm going to go into the wilds one more time. Zorp. Immediately the angry. I do not like being here. It's dark and unpleasant. And these guys do not look like friends. So I'd have to jump across there. That does look like a risky jump. That one didn't make it. I think the last bit is soft difficulty scaling. This is a thing you feel a lot. This is things like, if I spend a lot of time in an area, mobs that are feral are going to come after me. They're going to hurt me. It's not going to be pleasant at all. If I stay in one place, thanks to Schrödinger's cat plus Cronenberg, we get TARs. And the TARs spread infinitely, rapidly, because they're like a disease. They're Mr. Anderson diseases. Nice try, buddy. However, these guys... Ooh, these guys are like velociraptors. They'll come around you, do the clever girl thing. So you gotta watch for that. So soft difficulty scaling through the TARs is something you see more than you think. Soft difficulty scaling is something you try to hide from the player, but they can feel. And so that also includes things like damage. I can get a sword and slay mobs, and then I go to the next place and my sword is not very good at slaying mobs. Uh-oh. I have been gated. And not by the game saying you don't have enough money, and not by the game saying you don't have enough hit points. Instead, it's saying your power to fight, your power to, do your job is lessened. Go figure out how you're going to do that. Deal with that. And there are ways. So this soft difficulty scaling is even into this. These Kookaburras, or whatever they're called. Oh, there's one up there. The more that there are in a location, the more of these feral mobs, the more of these dangerous sabers rather than the jolly happy hunters over there. Which, they're dangerous, but not nearly so dangerous. They do go invisible. No one likes that. That's not business we want to be part of. So the soft difficulty scaling, we have the tar outbreaks as a natural system. So again, the player doesn't think of it as balancing, but it is balancing because the specific way they do it, the specific way they spread, how many mobs there are in the region that can be turned into tar with the Agent Johnson thing. And that's actually a great example. So tar outbreaks can also happen in your own town, in your own ranch, and that's terrible too. And that's, it's caused by the same reasons. A largo eating yet another poop. So then we have, I do have one more thing. Self-balancing through player choices. And what that means is kind of like, it should be self-apparent. Like the player looks at the game and says things like, oh, this is too scary. Or, you know what, I'm going to quit doing this and I'm going to do that. Or, I'm going to plan to do this. Oh, I'm thwarted. I'm going to do that. So the player gets to play around and along with these things. And there's trade-offs with the hybrid slimes. I talked about that earlier. We're going to go for a little bit longer, friends. I talked about that earlier. And it comes with something called personalized balance in its playstyle variety. Not just farming versus adventuring, but also min-maxing. And players have a different definition of that. Min-maxing might be based on your time. It might be based on your income. It might be based on your damage output. And players get very passionate about which is the correct one, which is actually good game design. Players should discuss the game difficulty. They should not be shackled to it. They should not be all in one. Everyone has to do the same thing or else. So this personalized playstyle is a great way to gate players. And you don't have to do any work. Except for put up the situation that allows them to be gated. I just want the teleporter now so I can end this stream. Give me teleporter. Oh, nice try. The Wilds is actually kind of fun. I never really feel like I'm in too much danger, even though everything wants to kill me. And there's a lot of adorable evil beasts. So this playstyle variety also comes with a thing, playstyle pace. And, that's completely in the hands of the player. I don't want to play this much. I want to play more and more. Excuse me. And all these things lead to soft balancing just by the player doing it. And more importantly, self-balancing. The player manages themselves and you don't have to do a thing because you've set up the situation for the player to balance themselves. And that is the classic outcome of game balance. The classic outcome is the player does the job for you of interpreting all the other decisions we've talked about tonight. And when they interpret it, I was going to say correctly, but that's definitely the wrong word. When they interpret it consistently, self-consistently, then you've got a game. You've got a balanced game. If the player thinks this is the meta, and I have to do it this way, then you don't have a balanced game, by definition. I'm kind of in danger. I am really looking for this exit. Operator, I need an exit. It's supposed to put up a sign, but I don't think it's that one over there. That seems a little far away. Okay, I've already gone over time. Automation and infrastructure. Resource scarcity and abundance cycles. They go together. There's only so many plorts to be had if I adventure. There's only so many plorts to be had if I farm. Many more plorts when I farm. So automating that and building up infrastructure, self-watering, grabbing plorts for you so you don't have to do that. Stuff like that are things you can buy, things you set up. It costs you time, it costs you money, but in exchange, you make your time more efficient. And because of resource scarcity, you care about which resource you're going to go for. And we've seen this in this stream kind of haphazardly, but you can see how I favored some of the plort styles, and I've talked about some of these guys in positive ways and talked about some of these guys in negative ways. All of these are part of the game balance, part of the soft difficulty that goes with the hard difficulty of a gate. Made me bleed my own blood. Do any of you know where the exit is? Just tell me and I will be gone. Nope, you're just going to bite me. Not in the pleasant way. So by automating, you've created infrastructure and you mitigate that thing I said earlier, where if you leave your ranch for too long, you are going to find that they are going to be unruly because they haven't been fed. Looking for the exit. I was going to say we're going to play until I find the exit, but that is absolutely not fair, and I really should wrap this up. So, because of resource scarcity, the player has an urge to automate more. Because of abundance of resources, the player slacks off and does other things. So, this self-balancing is matched with how you manage, how you balance the amount of resources you give for X, the amount of resources you give for Y, the amount of the science ingredients that I'm refusing to drop. Oh, there's a tar. And I don't have water. That's right. I forgot to pick up water. So it's gonna turn all of them to his side. Where the heck is the exit? This is, once again, this is a first time. This is the first. Oh, never mind. All right. This is a good place to wrap up with closing ceremony. So we talked about game balance in a lot of weird ways, a lot of ways you wouldn't think of me to do so. It wasn't just about the economy. It wasn't just about supply and demand. It wasn't just about spawning, despawning. It wasn't about drop rates, but it was about all those things. Because game balance is juggling one ball using three hands. Game balance is having to manage not just guns and butter, but how the guns and butter are used, how the guns and butter exist, what makes them guns and butter. It's not a thing economists have to deal with, but it is a thing game economists have to deal with. And last but not least, we talked a little bit about the spinning plates. When you spin plates, you have to commit. You have to do everything you can to make all the plates spin perfectly. Because if you don't, disaster. You don't have a game. If you don't, then you look like a fool. Because everyone goes, oh, this game is exploited. Oh, this game is too slow. Evil Genius 2. This game, back and forth. So, your game balance is about making a lot of decisions about a lot of little seeming things that ultimately give a player an experience that you wish them to have. And it involves things like a fake marketplace. It involves things like animals that bite, or slimes that bite, slimes that don't bite, ones that are spiky, ones that aren't spiky, ones that have radiation, ones that teleport. All of these things go into game balance. We also talked very briefly about red Mars, and I'll do a better job because I'm going to use green Mars for the next one, and then I'm going to use blue Mars. Not at all. Don't read that one. I don't know what he was thinking when he wrote that one. But he wasn't thinking about making a good book. Shade. All right. Now it's time for the closing ceremonies. Hopefully, we can agree that game balance is a lot more than just balancing some numbers. And it is a lot more than just deciding that chickens spawn here and therefore, players can get them. A lot more. Traversal times. I barely talked about that, but the time it takes to run out here and find this poor hungry hunter is significant. I'm using up some of my life to do that. And I need to go get some chooks for him now and throw them in there. Time. We also learned that in addition to surprising ways that we build an economy, that we build game balance, we also learned that players manage that. They are both your ally and your enemy. when it comes to building a game. They're watching you spin plates. They're part of the spinning of plates, and sometimes they are trying to stop you from spinning plates properly. And if they succeed, you fail. You don't have a game. If you spin the plates too hard, then you fail. If you fail to spin enough plates, you fail. So game balance is on the precipice of disaster every day. And that is why your game economists, the people who are in charge of managing all this, tend to be pretty stressed during the alpha and beta stage of a game, because they are in the thick of it. They are making assumptions. And it's funny, one of the things my bosses frequently say to me as we test various designs and systems I had is they say we need to validate, we want you specifically to validate your designs, which is correct, but it always gives me a shiver because, not just imposter syndrome, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for me to validate my own designs because, professionally, I can do it, but it's also my designs. It's my experience I wish you to have. And that's my last word on being a game designer, is the actual game design, the experience you want, involves game balance, and even though you have this experience, you may not be able to deliver it because of game balance reasons. Soft gates, hard gates, all these things I talked about might conspire to prevent the player from having the experience that we wanted you to have. This is my Steve, you've gone way too far. Sojourner, you've gone way too far. So it's time for us to do the closing ceremonies. An individual plort's price can change plus or minus 30 from its base price. In addition to that, the entire market is... No, I'm just kidding. That's not the closing ceremonies. But that is a ton of notes I have on the game economy if you would like to learn it. All right. I'm checking the chat. Red Mars is worth it, Somnia Mia. It really is. Green Mars is... and then blue Mars is just... wackadoodle. Like, the thing you loved was colonizing Mars, and then Green Mars was a little bit about a civilization has formed on Mars, and then Blue Mars is like thousands of years later, this is what's going on, which isn't cool. And we have immortal main characters now, so whatever. Okay, closing ceremonies. My name is Sojourner, also known as Steve Williams. I'm also known as Cloud Yeller, and I'll give myself a plug in just a moment. However, tonight I am representing PieTrap Studios, a art and co-development studio which has a game development studio for which I am the game designer. And as the game designer, I am deep into questions about what you saw tonight. Game economy being very, very big on my mind right now as I start to build out the itemization and think about how the various spoilers work and how the various spoilers interact with each other. So that's my gig, game economies. That's why I said that I was a little trepidatious, because this is my professional focus. I can only fail, but I think I did enough to give you the shape of the spinning plates that I deal with every day, and that any of your game designers deal with every day. I want to thank the founders of the Feast specifically. That's Pri and Chris. You saw Pri in the chat. They are my bosses. They are also the founders of this company, and really great people. I really enjoy working with them, and that's why I do things like give them a stream. Because, it's worth it. It's worth it to me because I like to stream, but it's also worth it to them, and I want to give it to them as my gift. My schedule. So I do this channel, PieTrap channel, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific, every Thursday. I have a new topic, a new game, and sometimes they're really scripted, and sometimes they're loosely scripted like this one, where I was more trying to get things out while I was in the moment. Some success, some failure. That's how this works. Okay, my other channel, I'm now allowed to plug it because I've said enough nice things about everything else. I am Cloud Yeller, and I do a lot of streams. I do a morning coffee stream, approximately 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and that would be 11:30 Central. I also do 2 streams during the week in the evening, Tuesday and Saturday evenings, 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific. And you might see me do special ones, like tomorrow I'm going to do a special one of a game called Grow the Seed. It's a card building game. It's kind of fun. I've only played a little bit, so we can explore that together. That is next week. Or sorry, that's my side gigs thing. So what am I doing next week? what am I going to talk about next week? I hinted at it many times. The title of it is How Designers Use Time. Hours, seasons, years, eons. All of these have meaning. This game has a strong reliance on time, day-night cycles, such like that. When I say eons, there are games that are built on large quantities of time, etc., etc. To find out more, join me next week, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific. So to finish my closing ceremonies, I need to just do some stuff. I don't have a theme song. I don't have anything like that. I just have saying the thing I like to say at the end of these, which is, I love you, be well.